Tonight I'm going to look at an entire book of the Bible. That's right, entire book of the Bible. Now you may be thinking, wow, that's pretty ambitious, Tyler, going through an entire book in one video. Well, there's an asterisk there because this book is only 15 verses. But as short as it may be, I still think there's a lot that we can take away from such a short chapter. Or, well, yeah, I guess it is. It's one chapter, so a short chapter, but a short book. And this book is the third letter of John. Third John. It comes two books before the Revelation. You've got First, Second, and Third John. Then you've got Jude. Then you've got Revelation. So it's way toward the back of your Bible if you're happening to want to follow along. So let's just dive right in. It says, the elder being John, to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Gaius is one of the church leaders that had been established at that time when they were starting to establish the church. Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you, and that you may be in good health, as it goes well with your soul. For I rejoiced greatly when the brothers came and testified to your truth. To your truth, as indeed you are walking in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. We're seeing that word truth a lot. Beloved, it is a faithful thing you do in all your efforts for these brothers, strangers as they are, who testified to your love before the church. You will do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God, for they have gone out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore, we ought to support people like these, that we may be fellow workers for the truth. I have written something to the church, but Diotrephes, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. So if I come, I will bring up what he is doing, talking wicked nonsense against us. And not content with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers, and also stops those who want to and puts them out of the church. Beloved, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil has not seen God. Demetrius has received a good testimony from everyone, and from the truth itself. We also add our testimony, and you know that our testimony is true. I had much to write to you, but I would rather not write with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. Peace be to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends, each by name. So there it is, the entire book, pardon Smokey there, the entire book of 3rd John. 15 verses, but wow, is there a lot there. First of all, we see the word truth taken so many times. I think there's at least 6 instances of the word truth in those 15 verses. And John here is putting an emphasis on the church that, we need to speak truth. It's important to remain to what's true and not be deceived by wicked ways. He talks about welcoming the brothers and the strangers. Now, what is it that we can take from here? Well, there's a lot that we can take from here. First of all, in the first sense of the text, we see that he is talking about welcoming the strangers. So there were missionaries back in that time who went from town to town, either one establishing churches or two going to churches to speak and encourage, quite much like what we see in modern times. It's not a new concept. There were missionaries back then, there are missionaries still today. What John is telling us here in this letter is that we are to support the missionaries. Support those who are doing God's work. Why? Because if we look at verse 7, it says, for they have gone out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. What does that mean? Well, that means that missionaries cannot rely on the lost for support. They cannot rely on those who are in the world, those who do not know Christ, for support. Because, and I'm sure this will be a huge shock, many who are lost may not be willing to financially support a cause for Christ. Huge shock, I'm sure, right? So what we need to do there is to remember that in whatever way We need to support those who are doing the Lord's work, especially if that is their full-time calling. Missionaries need to eat too. They're human, just like us. And how can we support these missionaries? Well, if you're fortunate enough, if God has blessed you and put you in a position where you can do so, then obviously financial support is a huge factor there. Of course, not all of us are in that position. We can support them through prayer. We can support them through hospitality. If you have a guest coming to speak at your church, perhaps offer up to put them up in your home. If there's a missionary visiting, put them up here in your home if you're able to and willing. If that's what the Lord calls us to do. So we can support them financially. We can support them by providing shelter and food. We can support them by praying for them and encouraging them. And when they come to our home church, we can welcome them. Beloved, it is a faithful thing you do in all your efforts for these brothers, strangers as they are, who testified to your love before the church. There's a certain level of trust that is required amongst believers, whether they be strangers or not. We need to have a certain level of trust. And we need to be willing to welcome those who come to do the Lord's work. Because ultimately, we are all fighting for the same goal. Now, of course, we must have discernment, which takes us into the next part of the book, which says, I have written something to the church, but Diotrephes, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. Diotrephes, at that time, was basically a self-server who held some position of power in an unnamed local church. And John is saying, what this guy is doing is not doing what is for Christ. He's doing what is for himself. And we need to stray away from that. We need to recognize that that is wrong. And we need to be cautious of that. If somebody has an intention to elevate oneself in the church versus elevating Christ in the church, we need to, one, hold that person accountable, and two, we need to make sure that they are not having a position of influence over the sheep, over the flock, over the members of the church. And verses 11 and 12, or verse 11 really stands out here, where it says, Beloved, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil has not seen God. Because ultimately, if we are doing evil things in the name of Christ, if we are doing things in the name of Christ that are serving us, that are attempting to put us in a position of higher power, if we are attempting to get some sort of glory, some sort of ego boost, some sort of higher recognition by doing things in the name of Christ, then we are doing it all wrong. And we are leading others astray. That's one thing that a lot of humans, unfortunately, have to struggle with, is putting their self-ego in check, including myself. I'm just as guilty as anyone. I'm a person who loves attention. But ultimately, that can be so detrimental to the church. We need to put God above ourselves. Otherwise, we are going to fall, and we are going to face that judgment seat one day, and God is going to say, Depart from me, I never knew you. When I would much rather hear a well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into my kingdom and receive the reward that is yours. For you have done great things in my name, not in your name.